Imagine a world where one man holds the fate of 28 million people in his hands, where a single word from his lips could mean life or death, where bread, simple, plain bread, had become rarer than gold. Now imagine the moment that man looks out from his palace window and sees the people coming for him. This is not fiction, this happened. And what happened next changed the world forever. France, 1789. On the surface, it looked like the most powerful kingdom in Europe. Its army was feared, its art was celebrated, its language was spoken in courts from Madrid to Moscow. But beneath the gilded surface, a nation was rotting from the inside. Louis XVI had been king since 1774. He was not cruel by nature, he was not a monster, he was something far more dangerous, a weak man in a position of absolute power. He liked hunting, he liked making locks. He was uncomfortable with confrontation. And while he tinkered in his workshop at Versailles, France was starving. The numbers tell a devastating story. By 1789, the French government was spending more money than it earned every single year. The national debt had spiraled to the equivalent of trillions in today's money. Wars had drained the treasury. The American Revolution, ironically, had cost France so much to support that it helped trigger its own revolution at home. But numbers alone don't break nations. Hunger does. The harvest of 1788 had been catastrophic. A brutal winter froze crops across the country. Then summer came with drought. Then hailstorms destroyed what little remained. In some regions, the bread price rose by 88% in a single year. In Paris, workers were spending nearly 90% of their wages just on bread, not food. Bread, just bread, and sometimes not even that. Meanwhile, at Versailles, the banquets continued. Marie Antoinette's wardrobe budget for a single year could have fed thousands of families. The extravagance wasn't just excess, it was a symbol. And symbols, when people are hungry enough, become weapons. The French society was built on a system called the estates, 3 groups, 3 destinies. The first estate, the clergy, owned 10% of the land and paid almost no taxes. The second estate, on board the nobility, held power, privilege, and immunity. Then came the third estate, everyone else, 97% of the French population, the merchants, the lawyers, the farmers, the workers, the poor. They carried the entire tax burden of the nation on their backs. They had no real political voice, and they had run out of patience. Into this powder keg came the ideas. The philosophers, Voltaire, Rousseau, Montesquieu, had spent decades asking dangerous questions. What gives a king the right to rule? Does power come from God or from the people? What is liberty? What is equality? These were not just questions, they were matches being struck in a room full of gunpowder. Louis, facing total financial collapse, was forced to call a meeting of the Estates General in May of 1789, the first time it had met in 175 years. It was an admission of weakness. The people saw it for what it was. But when the Third Estate arrived, they were told their votes would count for nothing. Each estate got 1 vote, not each representative. The clergy and nobility would always outvote them 2 to 1. It was the old system protecting itself, and the people had had enough. On June 17, 1789, the representatives of the Third Estate did something extraordinary. They declared themselves a National Assembly, a body that represented not the king, not the church, not the nobles, but the French nation itself. It was an act of quiet revolution. But revolution rarely stays quiet. When the king locked them out of their meeting hall, they gathered at a nearby tennis court, and there, on June 20th, 1789, they swore an oath that sent shockwaves across Europe. They would not disband, they would not be silenced, they would stay together until France had a constitution. History remembers it as the tennis court oath, one of the most defiant moments in political history. Louis blinked. He ordered the other estates to join the National Assembly. It seemed like a compromise. It was actually a retreat. The king had just shown the world that he could be pushed. But the people of Paris were not waiting for political maneuvers. They were watching the king's troops massing around the city. Rumors flew through the streets like fire. The king was going to crack down. The army was coming. Martial law was hours away. On July 14th, 1789, a date that would live forever, the people of Paris did not wait. They stormed the Bastille. The Bastille was a medieval fortress and prison in the heart of Paris. By 1789, it held only 7 prisoners, but it was a symbol of royal tyranny, of arbitrary imprisonment, of a king who could lock anyone away for any reason, without trial, without explanation. When the crowds broke through its walls, they were not just freeing prisoners, they were tearing down an idea. The prison governor was killed. His head was paraded through the streets on a pike. It was savage, it was terrifying, and it was a message written in blood. The old world was ending. When King Louis was told what had happened, he reportedly asked, "Is this a revolt?" His advisor replied, "No, sire, it is a revolution." The revolution spread with terrifying speed. In the countryside, peasants rose up against their landlords. They burned the records of their debts. They attacked chateaux. It became known as the Great Fear, a wave of rural violence that consumed entire provinces. The nobility began to flee France by the thousands. On August 4th, 1789, in a single extraordinary night, the nobles and clergy in the National Assembly did something unthinkable. Swept up in the atmosphere of revolutionary emotion, they voluntarily gave up their feudal privileges. The old system, centuries in the making, was dismantled in hours. It was the most remarkable act of collective self-sacrifice in political history, and historians still debate whether it was genuine or simply the recognition that holding on would cost them everything. Then came the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, adopted on August 26, 1789. 17 articles, simple, powerful words. All men are born free and equal in rights. The source of all sovereignty resides in the nation. Law is the expression of the general will. These were not just French ideas now, they would become the foundation of modern democracy around the world. But the revolution was far from over. It was, in many ways, just beginning. The royal family was still at Versailles, 12 miles from Paris. The distance felt like a wall. In October of 1789, thousands of Parisian women, furious about bread prices, furious about everything, marched to Versailles in the rain. They carried pikes, they carried kitchen knives, they forced their way into the palace. They demanded the royal family return to Paris, and Louis, unable to refuse, agreed. The King of France was brought back to Paris like a hostage. He moved into the Tuileries Palace, watched and guarded, his movements monitored. The people wanted their king close enough to touch and close enough to control. For 2 years, a strange, uneasy tension held France together. Louis played along, he accepted the new constitutional role, he gave speeches, he seemed to embrace the revolution, but in private he was writing letters to foreign kings, begging for military intervention. He wanted to crush the revolution with foreign armies, he wanted his old power back. It was the ultimate deception, a king pretending to accept democracy while plotting to destroy it. Then, on the night of June 20th, 1791, the royal family made their escape. In disguise, in a heavy carriage, in the middle of the night, Louis and Marie Antoinette fled Paris. The plan was to reach loyal troops near the Austrian border, regroup, and return with force. They almost made it. Just miles from the border, a postmaster named Jean-Baptiste Drouet recognized the king's face from a coin. He rode ahead. The royal carriage was stopped at the town of Varennes. Louis was recognized. He was arrested by his own subjects. The King of France was brought back to Paris in silence, surrounded by tens of thousands of people who lined the roads without saying a single word. The silence was more terrifying than any crowd noise. That silence was a verdict. Not a legal one, not yet. But the people of France had made up their minds. Their king had tried to flee. He had chosen foreign armies over his own people. He had betrayed the revolution. Whatever trust remained had been destroyed. The moderate voices that had tried to keep the king in a constitutional role were now drowned out by radical ones. The Jacobins. Maximilien Robespierre, Jean-Paul Marat. These men did not want a constitutional monarchy. They wanted a republic, and they wanted heads. In September 1792, the French Republic was declared. The king was no longer the king. He was now citizen Louis Capet. He was put on trial for treason, for his secret communications with foreign enemies, for his betrayal of the French people. The evidence was found in a secret iron safe hidden behind a wall panel in the Tuileries. Letters, proof, damning and absolute. The vote was close, but the verdict was death. On January 21st, 1793, Louis Capet was taken to the Place de la Révolution in Paris, now called the Place de la Concorde. A crowd of tens of thousands had gathered. Some were silent, some wept, many cheered. The guillotine stood waiting. Louis tried to speak to the crowd. "I die innocent of all the crimes laid to my charge," he said. "I pardon those who have occasioned my death." His words were cut off by a drum roll ordered by the revolutionary commanders. They did not want a martyr's speech to echo through history. The blade fell at 10 minutes past 10 in the morning. The crowd erupted. A young soldier dipped his hand in the king's blood and held it up to the sky. "Vive la République! Long live the Republic!" echoed across Paris. The revolution had consumed its king, but it was not done consuming. What followed, the period known as the Reign of Terror, would prove that revolutions can become the very monsters they set out to destroy. Robespierre, who had voted for the king's death, would himself be sent to the guillotine less than 2 years later. The machine that the revolution had built could not stop itself. Over 17,000 people were officially executed during the Terror. Hundreds of thousands more died in prison or in the civil wars that tore France apart. The ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, those beautiful words, were written in blood before they could be built in stone. And yet, from this chaos, something extraordinary emerged: modern democracy. The idea that power belongs to the people. The idea that no man, not even a king, is above the law. The idea that human beings have rights that cannot be taken away by birth or decree. These ideas, born in the fire of the French Revolution, would cross the Atlantic, cross the Channel, cross every ocean, and shape the world we live in today. The people of France in 1789 were hungry, desperate, and afraid. But they looked at a system that had ruled them for centuries, a system built on the absolute power of one man, and they said no more. They paid an unimaginable price for that word, but they said it. And the world was never the same again. If this story moved you, if you felt the hunger of those Parisian streets, the silence of that crowd watching a king fall, then you already understand why history matters, because it is not about the past. It is about who we are and what we are capable of, and how easily the world can change when enough people stop accepting what is and start demanding what should be. Subscribe to this channel, because history has more stories like this one, stories of courage, of betrayal, of impossible choices made by ordinary people in extraordinary times. Hit the like button if this documentary gave you something to think about. And leave a comment. Tell us, do you think the French Revolution was worth the price it cost? We want to know what you think. The revolution is never really over. It is always beginning somewhere. The only question is, are you watching?